Percy, I'm going to tell you about your grandfather. I'm your great-grandfather, and your great-great-grandfather is Corbett, and Juanita is your great-great-grandmother, and Clifford is your great-great-great
Hi, kids.
grandfather, and Fanny is your great grandmother.
There's Kyan and Lexi, and there's Kim and Grandma and Jamie, and then Grandma Elkins, and Grandma Wells, Grandma Sharon, and Grandpa Jim Elkins, and that's you. Hi, great grandpa. And then who else? So your grandpa, Kyan's great grandfather, was Corbett Elkins, who married Juanita.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, Corbett had 5 wives. 5 wives. So look at all these great uncles. Jim and Kay and Joy and Edith May and Geneva and Phoebe Jane and Janet and John Elkins. And Janet and John, their mother was Naomi Sprague. Let's go back to Corbett Elkins and Juanita. Well, Corbett's dad was Clifford, and he lived on a tobacco farm with 1,300 acres in Kentucky with 3 coal mines on it. He was a tobacco farmer. And he married Fanny Brewer. And tell me about what you did in Kentucky this last year.
Last year?
Or 2 years ago, whenever you went.
We sort of went through the farm. We visited the farmhouse. The farmhouse was still standing at the time, and it has been demolished the last year or so. But the farmhouse where all the relatives were born, 8 siblings, and it had stood for over 130 years. And it was a 4-room house, and it was hit with a coal-fired fireplace.
And they got the coal right on the farm.
And they got the coal right off of the farm.
Where did they live before they lived that white farmhouse?
They didn't have electric until 1948 is when the REMC came in and provided electric. Otherwise, it was a kerosene light and a kerosene lantern. Grandpa would go to the barn and milk the cow, and Grandma would get up and fire the wood fire cook stove and have his breakfast ready when he got back from milking the cow. But he done that in the dark with a kerosene lamp.
And what was your dad's name again?
My dad was Corbett Elkins. He was the first one of Clifford and Fanny Elkins. And George Elkins was the second one, and the third one was Edith Rose. Her name came after she married Harm Rose. And there was Woody and Brewer. Bernie and Woody fought in the bulge of the board in Germany.
And where did you serve, Jim?
I served in in Korea.
What did you do in the Army?
I was a specialist. When I first went to Korea, I was in a combat support company. I was a chart operator in a mortar company, and they transferred me to the engineers. And you think the engineers is just somebody build something, but no, the engineers do build things, but they also study things. and we studied biological warfare, atomic warfare, and radiological. That's atomic warfare. But it was quite a experience that I had while I was in the Army. I would never give anything up with the experience that I had when I was in the Army. And I ended up going to Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I was in the psychological warfare, which is altogether different. When I was inducted in the Army, I went to Fort Leonard Wood for basic training. I stayed there and took crypto school, and from there they shipped me right to Korea. And when I had no idea that I was coming back to psychological warfare, and that is an altogether different ballgame. You would not believe what you can do to people's mind by just by talking to them. It's.
For example?
I regret it now, but when I was married, I used to do that to my wife, and I think it affected her more than what she really thought. She would hide behind the door, and I mean, you could do tremendous damage.
So you would try these
But-
techniques on Sharon?
Yeah.
Wow.
It's
Anybody.
Anybody.
What year did you go to Korea?
I went to Korea in 1961,
What year did you enlist?
1960,
And what year did you retire from the military?
1963. I spent 3 years. And if I could have got out of probably out. Once you get into psychological warfare, you sort of stuck there.
Do you see any parallels to what's happening now with this whole psychological warfare that's happening with?
Yeah, you can really screw with people's mind by just talking to them. It's so simple. When in 1963, in 1962 they started to people that could speak 3 or 4 different languages and write them. Real smart people. They couldn't hardly march, but they could speak the language, and they sent them all over the world. They taught them how to do this, and they sent them all over the world. That's it.
Was God a part of your life then when
No.
you went?
No. I didn't get baptized until early 70s.
When do you remember having a relationship with God? Who told you about that God loved you and had a plan for your life?
Bob Peck. He was a minister here in New Haven, and he introduced me to what I should do, and nice guy.
Do you have any message for Percy and Sophia and Baylor and
Yes,
Jade and their new
yes.
baby coming?
Uh,
Any message for their life that they would want to know from their great grandpa?
my great grand my great grandfather couldn't read or write. He could write his name, but that's about it. And my grandmother taught him how to do that. He thought it was more important to make a living than it was to make a education. Back then, back in 1800s, it was important to provide for a family, and than it was to, learn to read and write.
And do you want your grandchildren to know the Lord?
Yes, be true to yourself, mom and dad, and to the good Lord, and He will take care of you. Thank you.